This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 209. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hey there.
One of these days, I'm going to screw everything up and do the order in reverse, and everyone will be sad. So, last week we had a whole list of topics, and then only actually talked about E3. And since we have started trying to do the whole time box thing, and even only talking about E3, we still went a little over.
I mean, in our defense, E3 was pretty huge.
It was a huge E3 this year. Like, there was so much going on, and yeah. So, we had lots to say. So, we're going to try and run through a few of the topics that we were going to talk about last week, or at least the ones we can remember, because I was an idiot and deleted them out, instead of moving them to another, agenda, or whatever the hell we call these things, show notes. Words are hard. Okay, so, I don't even know, weeks are confusing too. Because of E3, it caused me to dip my foot into a bunch of games that I have not played in a really long time. One of those is The Division, because of all of us, I was the only one who thought the Division trailer looked cool. Also, I don't know, I've got a really good friend that's on the social team of Massive, so I kind of feel bad that I've done a lot of hate on Division over the years. Well, actually, over the year, singular. I guess maybe it's been out 2 years.
I definitely know I play this game because I have friends who made it.
Yeah, so I decided to poke my head back in, and there's a lot of people that are casually playing Division still in my social sphere, and everyone, from the moment I said I'm trying to see what this game's about, said you need to play survival. So I do not know when this came out, but it was apparently in one of the patch cycles that there's a game mode down in the subway area that got added onto the base called Survival. And it kind of looks like you're going out into the DZ. So there's a gate there and you queue up for it. And you have two choices. You can either go in to PvE only or PvP enabled. And I, of course, went into PvE only because, no, I don't want to fight other players.
Hooray.
So you get treated to this little cinematic to where this crazy snowstorm is hitting New York, and it is sub-zero temperatures, crazy wind chill, and someone as you're flying in on the helicopter, a piece of sign breaks loose and takes out the rotors, and you crash, and you're the only one who survives from your team. And you did have a hazmat suit on because there's also a crazy infection going around, and you are supposed to go into the dark zone and go find this cure and extract, but you have no equipment. You just have your torn environmental suit, and you are bleeding. So and you also only have a pistol to start off with. And going out into the storm starts reducing your body temperature almost immediately. So you kind of have to make your way hopping back and forth between buildings or these fire barrels that are lit, and you have to kind of rummage through the ruins to try and find reasonable weapons, because you're started out in a really rudimentary set of gear. Cosmetic items drop, except for all the gear in here is only for this game mode and only for this one match. So it's a really long match. And you're essentially, the longer you survive and the more stuff you find, the higher your eventual score is. And at the very end, you're rewarded with packages of loot that are real loot, actual loot. One of the things I thought was kind of cool is like as you're roaming around, you're finding cosmetic gear, but instead of just being purely cosmetic, it is like scarves and hats and things like that that will help protect you from the cold so you can stay out there longer. You also can find additional weapons while you're out. I never came close to even getting into the dark zone because the first hurdle is you have to gather enough resources to be able to craft a filter, kind of like you do in the main game, in order to be able to go in and survive in the dark zone with the infection running rampant there. But apparently, like, there are people that can do this thing in like 9 minutes. Most of the time, I would survive 30-40 minutes before I ran out of resources, because there's basically a ticking clock from the beginning that you have like 15 minutes until the infection overtakes you. But as you roam around, you find meds that will essentially freeze the timer for a period of time. So like it will temporarily boost your immune system to where you're not affected by the infection. So it's like a vastly different experience, and especially in the PvE setup, you're actually kind of helping out other players, which is kind of cool. Because once you apparently make it to the dark zone, like there are NPCs actively hunting you as well, so they will like track you down and not just passively wander across your path. So I don't know, it was kind of cool. It's decent experience. I got like a level and some change on the time that I made it 45 minutes. And then I also got like a package of loot that was like 3 orange items and a red item, which are the top 2 tiers of gear available. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool. It's still Division, it's still third person combat, it's still running around and fighting people in the streets, but it was an interesting take on the Division.
The fact that they actually provided a PvE version of it means that it's something that I could actually, see myself doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun.
So that's nice.
It took about 5 minutes or so to find a queue, because you go in there basically with other players, and I guess in theory you're competing with them, so that, whoever is the first one to get the medicine out of the dark zone probably technically wins, but you get enough tangential awards from just roaming around and picking stuff up that it feels worthwhile even if you're not actually playing to beat the mode. It seems like an interesting competitive PvE mode, at least, if you're trying to play it like that. And if you're not, it still seemed to be pretty fun, because like it was challenging to get to somewhere else on the map while trying not to freeze and while trying not to die from the disease. Anyway, another topic that got bumped from last week is Tam and his journey into PSVR.
Yeah. So, I should preface this by commenting that I have opinions about VR, and as cool as it is, I don't think I haven't thought that it's in a place where it's just a thing I want to do, versus like an interesting novelty. And
Right.
It's still kind of there, but it's a lot closer.
I think the problem with VR is, like, my entire life, literally, I have been waiting for VR to be a thing.
Yep.
Like, I've been waiting on this elusive target on the horizon when we have real virtual reality. Like, where you jack in just like, Gibson, and you're in this other realm, and it feels real. And we're closer, but we're also still not there.
Yeah. And for me, I was like, okay, I've been like, okay, VR has got to give me something something not just as good as a standard game, but something that is unique to VR that I couldn't do outside of it. Like, that just wouldn't work. And it's not, I've had difficulties seeing anybody like, oh, okay, that was cool, but why? So I managed to I managed to pull off some swaps and get a PSVR because I figured like I've spent a lot of time kind of blasting VR, and I really should make sure I'm like very familiar with the existing offerings if I'm going to maintain that. So over the last few weeks, I've hooked up a PSVR because as nice as the like, I mean, first of all, something like a Vive is super expensive and just inaccessible for most people, whereas a PSVR is like in the realm of accessible for people. Like, yes, it's like the price of a console, but it's not, you know, $1,000 on top of $1,000 plus computer.
Yeah.
So I picked up the PSVR, and I've played a handful of games on it now. I've started, I think I briefly talked about Skyrim in VR, which is really fun, admittedly. But Skyrim is really fun. Like, a lot of it is Skyrim is fun. This is fun. It has incredibly janky controls. I think I've spent maybe 4 hours playing it, 2 of which have been flailing around badly, trying to just move around normally. Because the way it works is you use the move control. You can use the move controls, and if you want like the really fun experience, it's the best way to do it. Which are like these I don't know if you're familiar with move controls. They're like big lollipop looking things.
It was PlayStation's answer to the Wii remote.
Yeah,
Right. With the glowy ball on the end.
yeah,
And the fidelity is not traditionally great.
So the fidelity here is
It's better than a Wii remote.
It's better than a Wii remote. Honestly, like the fidelity of the motion controls is some of the best I've ever seen. Because like I pull a sword out, and the sword pretty well matches my movements. And if I swing it, if I just move it around, it doesn't trigger a swing, but it does move around in the game. But if I move it fast enough, it registers as a swing, and I can do that and hit things. And I've even been able to like aim it. It makes the bow very, very hard to use, because to actually shoot it, you've got to like you've got to hold your left arm and then draw the bow with the right one and aim and fire. And like you need to draw it like you would draw a bow, like across your whole body. So it's not a trivial process to the point where and it's really hard to intuit where your shot is going to go, because it's not like your bow has a crosshair, and you don't have a crosshair in the game. So I mostly just don't use the bow, but that's fine because Skyrim lets you play in a variety of ways, and honestly, I should have something that encourages me to play something other than a stealthy bow sniper in Skyrim.
It's true.
So this does a very good job of that. But on the other hand, then there's like actually walking around. And I get what they were thinking, but it doesn't work well. You've got a button on the left controller that is move, and it will move you in the direction that the controller is tilted, where holding the controller straight up and down is not moving. Holding a controller straight up and down is incredibly awkward. Like, this is a super awkward position to hold a controller in, and it is like the core movement functionality of this game. And there's also like the VR teleport move that I guess a lot of people prefer, but I don't. Like, I want the full motion experience, and like it's a little bit disorienting at first, but then you sort of ease into it, or at least for me, I was able to ease into it, and it was fine-ish. But the awkwardness of moving around is definitely a thing. On the other hand, actually being able to look around like you're actually in a Skyrim space is super cool. And I think adds a lot, because it means that you really get to appreciate the environments that you're in a way that when you're just looking at the screen and kind of focusing on what's right in front of you, there's a lot of little details that you just don't catch because you don't have the peripheral vision. So I think that part is very cool.
I get what you're saying, because like I recently, Christmas time, I switched over to using a 43-inch high refresh television as a monitor, and it's not exactly the same, but there's a lot of games that I notice all sorts of new details because it's effectively covering my entire field of view.
Yeah.
Because it's close enough to me that like I have peripheral vision that's now the edges of my screen.
Right. And yes, and Skyrim is very much it's full of little things that you can interact with and little details in various places and interesting little physics stuff that's going on. You know, you'll bump a candelabra and it'll fall over and you'll spin around because you've heard something and it was you knocking over a candelabra, and like that's a cool experience to have. By itself worth the price of entry? Not really, but it is cool. So Skyrim, I was like, all right, this is cool. I'll probably play some more of it, but it's not like selling me on this is an experience I want to constantly have. And so I picked up a handful of other games. I picked up Res Infinite, Eve Valkyrie, and Moss. Res Infinite is Res in VR, and I was incredibly skeptical of this because I played Res, and Res is kind of hard enough with a controller. What Res Infinite in VR showed me is, yes, there is a bit of functionality that you can get out of a VR headset that starts to sell me on this is a better idea. So I don't know how familiar anybody is with Res. When you're playing, like,
Res is basically a corridor shooter with rhythm.
Yeah. Yes, basically it's a corridor shooter music game, and you've got a crosshair that you're moving around with the control stick to target all the things you want to shoot and then shooting them, you know, like you do. In Res Infinite in VR, you don't use the control stick at all. It watches where your headset is pointing and where you're looking and highlights targets that way. So it's basically like having a look assisted aim rather than having to aim with a controller. And it's really cool.
That sounds really good.
Of all of the games that I have played on this thing, I have put the most time into Res VR, and like, it is absolutely an experience where I'm like, it's a music game. It's the kind of thing that I play, like, it's effectively like Lumines. I love Lumines, but it's a game that I kind of I play when I'm on the go. I don't like sit down and be like, okay, what I'm going to do in my living room this evening is play Lumines. I've done that quite a bit with Res Infinite. And it's just really fun. It cuts out the weirdness of I can aim at whatever I look at as fast as I can look at it. And that's a super great feeling.
Does it so it feels more responsive than like playing with the controller?
It feels way more responsive than playing with. I didn't like the original Res. Like, it was too much stuff, and I wasn't quite agile enough with a thumbstick to be able to target as elegantly as it wanted me to. Whereas I really enjoy Res Infinite because I don't need to do that. I just like move my head in an arc. And because I'm standing up to do it, like, I'm standing up because that's one of the things that works well for VR, but because I'm standing up and I'm looking around and it's a rhythm game, I very, very quickly find myself like bobbing in time with the music, which makes me better at the game because it's a rhythm game. Like, it feeds on itself really, really well, and it like gently encourages just enough body motion to get me into the music part of the game, and being into the music part of the game makes me better at the rest of the game because it's a rhythm game. And just the melding of those things actually works really, really well. That game is super fun, and it got me into like, oh, looking in a certain, like, using look as aim doesn't have to be a gimmick that replaces a stick. You can do some really neat stuff with it. So I like that a lot. I actually wish Skyrim did more of that rather than it does a thing. Skyrim, like, if you want to pick up an item, it detects like what you're pointing at with your right hand or your left hand, whatever handedness you select for the game, unless you pick both. But like, I pointed a cup with my sword and it gives me the prompt to pick up the cup. So Res Infinite is really neat. Eve Valkyrie is super disorienting at first because it has you sit down and you use a controller, and the way you sit with a controller is mirrored by like the shape of a person in a cockpit, but not quite, so it feels a little weird. But it's a space shooter just in 3D and VR. And it makes me really want to play like Elite Dangerous or Star Citizen in VR because that's a super fun experience. I don't think the game is all that great necessarily. Like it's some pretty basic training mission, like training environment missions, and then you have deathmatch multiplayer basically. So for the actual game, but the experience of playing it is super fun. You fly around in a ship. It uses the same head tracking aiming. So like it means that you actually fulfill the promise of being able to shoot in one direction while you're flying in another direction and have that feel natural and reasonable. Because you can like some ships will have like pintle mounted weapons, and so they'll fire in the direction that you're looking, even if that's not the direction that you're flying. And that's a really cool mechanic.
I will say Elite Dangerous was a game that almost sold me on VR. The little bit that I played at PAX South several years ago.
It's a really cool experience. Eve Valkyrie is really neat. That was another one that I played a lot more of than I was expecting to. And I really enjoy it. Is very disorienting because you're flying around in true 3D. And so like your ship is flying around and spinning and stuff, and you're looking around in different directions as your ship is doing this. So like if there's a game that's going to make you ill in VR, it's probably that one. I have definitely had like playing that one. I've definitely had like, okay, I need to stop for a bit. I've been spinning around in space and yikes. But it is cool.
I kind of feel like VR is going through this phase that mobile games did as well, where they're not quite sure how to translate ideas into something that feels good yet.
Yes. And that's sort of the running theme with these games that I've played, is that there's these little sparks of brilliance that I'm like, oh, okay, that's really cool. But there isn't an experience, like the full game experience is not like blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Like Eve Valkyrie is a super, super cool experience for like 10 minutes. And then I realized that it's like, oh, this is a super grindy, just hop into space death matches game. Like there's no campaign, there's no story to it. It's going to these things.
There are training missions.
Yeah, there's training missions, and then you do them. They're not very long. But it was like right as I'm getting into it, it's like, oh, that's what's left in this game is this. Okay.
Well, didn't they almost instantly announce an Eve Valkyrie 2 when they released Eve Valkyrie, which is in theory trying to fix some of the things that they figured out while they were building the first one?
I'm not sure. I haven't really followed it at all.
I thought there was a sequel in the works.
There might be. The last game I picked up is Moss, which is like the indie darling PSVR game, and it's super charming. It's probably the best argument for VR I've played. It's a 3D-ish platformer with a fixed viewpoint, but you can look around from your fixed viewpoint. That's this combination motion control puzzle-solving physics game and platformer where you're an adorable mouse with a sword. And like it's this very storybook presentation, and like the conceit is you're like, I don't know, haunting this mouse. I don't know. You're a floating ghost, and like some people can see you or sense that you're there, and I don't know, you follow around this mouse. It's not really, I haven't gotten far enough for it to be clear at all, like how or why I'm haunting this mouse, but here we are. But I can like move things around. I think if they're made of metal, I'm not really sure. I'm still figuring out like the details of that one. Coder played it a bit also.
Yeah, the thing that was weird for me is that you're using a controller and it has motion controls to it. So like you're using the 6-axis motion controls.
Yes. And the light on the front of the controller is used to determine where the controller is, which admittedly is a very cool piece of technology, but it's weird feeling.
Yeah.
I fully expected that game was a move controls thing, and then it didn't respond to the move controls. And I was like, wait, do you want me to play this with a controller? Really? That's what you want me to do? Okay.
That seems like generally bad times.
It was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not bad, but it's weird, and you end up like moving in weird, awkward ways just to make the thing respond properly. If you're sensing a running theme of all of these games spend a ton of time figuring out how to interact with them, yes. I like them more the more I play of them, but there's like an uphill battle to get into it because a lot of the controls are pretty janky. Even when they're really well thought out, they're not immediately intuitive if you're familiar to other video games, so it can take a while for you to figure out, like, oh, that's what they want me to do. That's weird.
I feel like, and I'm sure there probably already exists a game like this, but I think the game that would translate really well to VR in its current state is something like House of the Dead, to where you're basically on an amusement park ride and you have full aim control and can shoot things that are coming at you.
That is basically how Rez plays.
Okay. Because like that seems like that would work well. Like I played the hell out of House of the Dead, especially on the Dreamcast.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're starting to get there, but it's still if all of these games used a similar control scheme, I would be much more okay with the inroad. But it's like every new VR game I pick up has some other crazy control thing it's doing.
Well, this goes back to like when we were playing games like Tron 2.0, where they're games before they standardized the FPS control scheme.
Yes.
And we haven't arrived at that point yet. Like nobody has created the ideal VR control scheme yet that everyone else is going to now copy.
Yeah.
So we need a VR siphon filter?
I mean,
pretty much, yeah.
Basically. Like VR still doesn't have its killer app that's like, okay, this is how you do VR. I think we're getting closer and closer. Like the fact that VR controllers as a wand you hold in each hand with buttons on it, that's definitely a thing that's taking shape sort of across all of the VR platforms. And like they're starting to coalesce in a, kind of similar, I don't know, shape, I guess, like configuration, but we're still not really there yet.
Because it is simple.
Is Beat Saber's what is Beat Saber's on?
Beat Saber is not out.
It's coming on PS4.
It's planned, I think, but it's not out yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it was announced at, I think, E3 that it's coming to PSVR, which who knows when that's actually going to happen.
And I'm interested in seeing that one, but I also feel like Beat Sabers is one of those spectacle games versus a game that you can really sink your teeth into. And maybe that's just what VR is good at, much like what mobile is good at, are these kind of bite-sized experiences.
I think a lot of the VR games right now feel more like this is a tech demo that we needed to sell because we needed some money to build the next tech demo.
It's why I'm so interested in like Skyrim VR, because Skyrim is a game independent of being on VR, and the transition isn't the most elegant I've seen. It's probably the least elegant control scheme of all of the games I've played, but it also, there's a lot of game there.
Well, and I think the difference there is Skyrim is a game you know how to play.
Yes.
So there's not the shock of learning the control scheme plus learning how the game works. You already know how the game works. Like, you've got that nailed. You just need to learn how they want you to control it.
Yeah. And some parts of it work better than others.
I'm also curious to see what, like, Fallout 4 VR plays like.
I suspect it'll play a lot like... Is Fallout 4 VR out?
Yeah, it's been out on PC platforms for a while. I don't know if it's out on PSVR.
I don't think it is. But I don't know. I suspect it controls very similarly. I feel like we have not quite gotten away from the need for a thumbstick on a controller. We might not need two, but not having a thumbstick on a Move controller is not great because it means that you can't navigate menus elegantly. And like there's a lot of menus in Skyrim. I had not like mentally processed how many menus there are in Skyrim because when I'm playing it on the PC or even with a controller on a PS4, it's a very you just navigate menus without thinking about it because it's just easy to do. You just blast through them, get what you need, and go. And it doesn't feel like you spend a lot of time in there. The moment you have an interface where the menu like just isn't elegant, I'm mad. Like I have to go like leveling up in Skyrim VR where it's like, oh, you need to go into this menu and then go into this other menu that'll take you to the star menu. And then each of these is a bunch of sub menus that you've got to navigate. And by the way, they like move in weird ways because they're all these different constellation shapes. I rage.
I almost wonder if this is a situation where voice controls would help out.
That also feels like a situation where they like a lot of menus, there is no easy way yet to make them seamless with the VR. Like for instance, the menu for going through all your items, the obvious VR solution for that would be you actually are digging around in your backpack trying to find the thing you want. But and obviously they can't do that yet. But for that, like it seems like they could have just had it like you look up and look at the constellations and then maybe like hit a button or something.
Yeah. The big like aha moment for me was playing Rez and Eve, where it knew where I was looking on a menu with good enough fidelity, or knew where I was looking with good enough fidelity that it could target things. And I feel like that is the menu answer. And I don't quite know how to pull that up, because the way that Skyrim does its menus is it brings up a menu as a static object in front of you as opposed to a dynamic object in the environment. But I feel like the answer is like Sword Art Online style menus that are just like hovering, squares.
Like do some Minority Report stuff.
Yeah, like that I think is the answer for menus, because then you can use what you're looking at. Then you can like look independently of the menu. It's like, okay, maybe you lose the menu somewhere, but it just comes up in a preset location. But yeah, verdict, VR is interesting. It's definitely a lot closer than it's ever been. We're still not quite there yet, but like tantalizingly close.
So another thing that came up last week is the fact that Bethesda quietly announced that they're up to 11 million players of Elder Scrolls Online.
We did sort of touch on this last week.
Yeah, I know. So this is like a jumping off. Post E3, like this, another game that I have been spending a significant amount of time in is Elder Scrolls Online, and I am really weird about this game in that I have not touched any of the expansion content because I want to make it all the way through the 3 Kingdom new game plus content that was in at release, and I had been stalled out in Stonefalls because Stonefalls
It's
is
the first Ebonheart area, right?
It's the second Ebonheart area, but it's the first real Ebonheart area,
Right after Bleak Rock.
Yeah, and
the area we spent a lot of beta.
Yes, and that's part of the problem. Is like one of the things that kind of hurt this game in the long run is the fact that we hit it as hard and heavy in alpha as we did because we were bug stomping. So Stonefalls was one of those areas that like we played a lot and bug noted a lot. So to get past the mechanical aspect of that zone and get into the story of the zone has always been a challenge. And like every Ebonheart character that I've tried to play has stalled out about halfway through that zone. That said, I have successfully made it through Stonefalls now and am speeding through Deshaun without issue. Deshaun is a much better zone than Stonefalls. Or at least it's a more interesting zone.
Flatter.
But it is very not flat.
Right. Well, and you've got a cool, storyline that's woven through there that, like, since I am a zombie movie fan, I feel like I probably like Deshaun more than most people would, but and like in the grand scheme of things, the main reason why I want to make it through Ebonheart is so that I can see our namesake characters with my actual main before I go play any expansion content. But my God, there's a ton of content in this game because I know the expansions are really long and I'm still chewing on the original content, but it is a really good game. Like every time I step back into it, I can't remember why I stopped playing the last time I stopped playing it. And I think it's mostly that Alakir Desert was not a problem for me, but
I know you like it, but I don't.
That was your stumbling block. But yeah, no, I thought that was fine. Because like I pushed through into Old Mary before originally quitting, and I think just some other shiny object came across my view line and took me away, and it was probably the return to Final Fantasy XIV, if I'm guessing what it was. But the game is really good shape. I got into a discussion about the subscription scheme with someone today, and they were like that they hated that they locked the nifty craft bag away behind a subscription. And to me, like, that's a really nice bonus. That's kind of a thank you gift for the subscription. But what you're actually paying for the subscription is not having to give a shit about buying any of the expansion content. Because if you're subbed to the game, you just kind of get it all. But my God, that crafting bag is amazing. And I can't hardly play the game without that crafting bag. Because even though I have like 150 slots in my main bag after upgrading it significantly, it still fills up so fast with crafting stuff. It's been a great game to play on the couch, just kind of digging into the story and letting it go wherever it takes me. I don't know. I'm still a huge fan of the game, and I think it's really enjoyable. And I'm hoping this time I can make it through Evanhart, so I can actually start in on, I think, the first of the expansions, which was Orsinium?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm actually doing thieving.
Wow.
Yeah. I've been playing around with that. That system is entertaining. I kind of love the whole the fact that there's a thieves guild in every town. I don't know, like, I guess one of the things that I don't understand is I remember at launch, fans of Elder Scrolls were super hard on this game, and the longer it's around, the more it just feels like an Elder Scrolls game to me. Like, unless
there was an update shortly after we started that basically made all of the weapons in the world interactable. Like, if you just see a sword lying around, you can grab a sword from there.
Yeah. Now you can't do much of anything useful with it.
No, it's going to be a bad sword, but
it's a bad sword. But yeah,
you can loot the world now.
Yeah,
you can loot the world now. You mean you could loot large parts of the world at launch? Now you can just loot everything.
But honestly, like, by the time they reached the 1 year anniversary, I think most of the systems were in place that made it just feel like Elder Scrolls. Even though that's kind of an intangible goal, like, to me, it feels exactly like Elder Scrolls, except for I'm playing in third person instead of first person.
And even that's optional.
Yeah. And there are enough UI options out there to fix any of those complaints that I had about the default UI, so... But I still, like, I mean, I know Void recently started the game because somehow he missed that there's a story. Like, I don't know how in
That's
the
wild
hell
to me.
He missed that. Because, like, honestly, I think there's more story in that game than any of the other MMOs out there. Like, I'm pretty sure the vanilla content is several times bigger than, like, ARR plus all of the patches that followed ARR for storyline. Because, like, every zone has, like, a pretty big storyline arc that carries you through with a bunch of tiny little stories that intersperse it. And then there's, like, the big main story arc for every faction. And they do a good job of moving along and at least not letting you derail too far. I'm constantly impressed by all the weird little hidden things that are out in the world. Because I'm constantly finding, I think as we said before, it's the tale of bad picnics or picnics gone wrong. Because, like, there's the sign that somebody had camped somewhere and there's a skeleton and now there's stuff for me to loot or a treasure chest. But they're hidden all over the place. And I've been finding them in Deshaun. But anyway, I don't know how much more I have to say, but it's a freaking great game and I'm enjoying myself. And I would be playing it tonight while we podcast, except for I'm not sure how well I would be able to concentrate on the actual podcast if I were playing story.
So one of the comments I remember making is that when I was playing the game, it was not really could only play it for a little bit before I was like more than a little like exhausted.
That's still a thing. Like that, I think that in part is what happens to me. Like I go through phases where I just can't pay that much attention to a game, because like you need to be reacting to stuff or you just die. There's no auto combat like in some MMOs where you like mash some buttons while things loosely play out and you can watch a television show in the background or have a conversation and it's not really going to affect the outcome of the event. Like even though I have a ton of champion points that serve as a buffer to make things a little bit easier, I can straight up get wrecked if I stop paying attention to cues. So like I get that aspect definitely. There are some times where I'm just too exhausted to play. But I do feel like the experience is really good, and especially on a really large monitor.
Oh yeah.
It feels super immersive. Like all those little hidden things in every corner of the world feel all the better at 4K resolution. Like it looks gorgeous in 4K, which is awesome considering this is a game that will like pretty much run on anything because it's highly optimized. It also looks great once you've taken it up to 4K resolutions. Anyway, another thing that came out is Hollow Knight for the Switch.
Yay!
Which was basically on the store as of when Nintendo Direct came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, they put it up later that day.
I can stop getting glared at by Ash for not buying it because I've now bought it.
It's true.
I have been playing a lot of this game. It's a very good like wind down before going to bed game.
Wait, really?
Tam has different ideas for what is a good relaxing game.
I like so Hollow Knight is a game where I can turn my brain off.
Yeah, that is not a thing for me.
Because I just
Same.
I just let reflexes take over. I've actually the first thing I do for almost all of my sessions is I wake up at a bench and I'm like, okay, where did I die? Let's go where did I die after falling asleep? Let's go find where that happened and move on from there. It's a Metroidvania that I actually like, so that's I don't know what other meaningful praise I can give a game than that.
I think it is the best game in its genre.
I mean, I would believe this.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Like, it's really, really good. It's super charming. It's not actually a horror game, although it looks like with a little bit of tweaking, it absolutely would be. But it
isn't, but it sure flirts with the idea.
Yes. Yes.
Now I know you haven't been to one area in particular where it goes real heavy on that.
I mean, fair. I've definitely not seen the entire game. But it's fun to move the controls are super tight, which is a frustration that I've often had with Metroidvanias, including both of the classics.
Unlike most Castlevanias, you have perfect air control all the time.
Yeah.
And, well, the game knows you have perfect air control and designed some of the platform to be incredibly precise, but...
Yes,
that's okay.
I have had... There has been at least one section, one platforming section that I think I described as spicy hot bullshit because it was.
Ooh, I think I know which one you're talking about.
This is the way to the Great Slash in Green Path.
Yeah, that was. I have not run into anything quite as nonsense as that.
That is definitely one of the harder ones. It's not the hardest one.
I don't know if I've run into the hardest one.
You have not and will not for some time, and probably won't before beating the game.
Fair.
No, I definitely didn't.
I don't like its mapping. I mean, I'm just going to say it. I don't like the way it handles mapping. I understand what it's doing, and I don't like it. But I like almost everything else about it, so I'm willing to forgive that. It also does a really good job of layering more and more stuff on you without it getting overwhelming, which is a thing that I've seen done badly in Metroidvanias. I haven't gotten anything that I would... I've gotten exactly one thing that I consider, like, super niche. But yeah, I do spend a lot of time wandering aimlessly. Like, really aimlessly.
That's definitely one of the things I liked about this game compared to a lot of other Metroidvanias is after the opening, the game opens up a lot, and the result is that you spend a lot of time wandering. And movement is fun, so it's not that bad wandering. And also, the game gets very non-linear. So it's possible to find things in all sorts of weird corners, even with a fairly small set of abilities.
I think there could be about twice as many fast travel locations, because there's or they could be better placed. One of the two.
You eventually get like a mark recall type thing, which helps a lot.
Oh, that should. Wow. Yeah, I would probably have a lot fewer issues with the mapping or the long distance travel. Because like wandering is super fun, especially if it's in a new place that I haven't been to yet. Like that's super fun, but it's like I'm here and I need to get over here. I'm nowhere near a fast travel node, and there's no fast travel node near where I'm going, but I also have to traverse like basically the entire map to get there.
Yeah.
That's like when that's when I'm having the least fun, because there's just no way to make that any faster. But
that was something they added in one of the first.
The very first update added that.
The mark and recall thing?
Yes.
I have definitely not gotten it.
It may take a while depending on where you go. Because that's the thing. I don't know what path they're taking through the game because there are a lot of them.
I mean, I'm taking what feels like the most straightforward one.
Yet it is very different than my first path through the game.
I mean, Forgotten Crossroads.
You have to start with beating the boss of Forgotten Crossroads and going into Green Path and then going down to Fungal Wastes.
Yes.
And from there you have some options. The game clearly intends for you to go into the city and then maybe go back and beat the Mantis Lords and then do some other stuff. Maybe go to Crystal Peak. Maybe go to Resting Grounds.
I definitely have, like...
But what I did was open my way to the sewers and didn't get to Crystal Peak or the Resting Grounds for a long time.
The game feels really strongly like what it wants you to do is Forgotten Crossroads to Green Path to Fungal Wastes to City of Tears to... is it Resting Grounds or Crystal Peak next?
Crystal Peak.
Crystal Peak to the Resting Grounds to the other half of the City of Tears. And then that's sort of where I'm like, having done those things in that order, I'm like, I'm not really sure what you do at this point. Like I managed to get up to the Howling Cliffs, but there didn't seem to be any point to going there.
What's there? There's a Nail Master there. If you have the Dream Nail, there's a ghost there.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely like used the Royal Waterways to get to the other half of the City of Tears that you couldn't access, and unlocked a bunch of stuff there. But
I did find out later that isn't actually required. You can get across by clever use of elevators in the city proper.
Well.
Yeah, I think that's what I ended up doing. Like I didn't go into the waterway until way, way late.
Those waterways are misery, so...
Or more like I poked my head in, said, no, not right now. Yeah.
I did fight the boss down there. He was actually super easy. The what?
Flukmarm? Or, no, wait.
The Defender, the Dung Defender.
I do not remember most of this game. I should probably go play it again. Probably on the Switch.
It's really
playing
good.
A randomizer, testing my ability of, do I remember where items are?
Hell no.
Because what if you beat Hornet and you don't get the dash? Then what?
Oh.
Turns out I didn't have to ask this question because instead of getting the fireball, I got the dash. Problem, I now can't get in the Green Path. But you can get into Fungal Waste with just the dash, without the fireball. This game is weird, and the randomizer only makes it more weird. I'm having fun.
I'm glad to hear it.
It is very weird, but also super charming. Like, it being super charming definitely helps my enjoyment. I really like the, humming bugs. Like, the super proud of themselves, guard bugs. Like, they're really funny.
I hate the big guard bugs so much.
I mean, I do hate the big guard bugs, but they're also really funny, so I'm not too mad about it. But there's also a lot of weird stuff there's a lot of weird stuff in this game that I think if I liked Metroidvanias in general more, I would enjoy more, but I still enjoy it. I still want to know what the giraffe guy is doing.
No, you don't.
I mean, she's having a snack, but I like to think she's eating those stupid jellyfish.
One of the key items you get lets you basically read people's thoughts, and maybe she is not pure and innocent.
I mean, that seems like most of the people here.
Fair, but most of them didn't kill other bugs around them for food.
I mean, she basically tells you that's what she's doing.
I mean, she claims she found a fungus of some kind.
I mean, I've met
then
some...
Then you get a double jump, you can find out what she's actually eating.
Fair, although I've met quite a few fungi in this game already.
I guess there is that.
So, like,
I mean, the vast majority of the bugs that are hanging out down there are jerks, and I've been killing them. So what's wrong with her killing them and then
I
eating
guess
them?
that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of the fungi that like see me and run away. And I'm like, hey, no, like,
Like the little ones, or the big ones that grow into ball and attack you. With
No,
the most
those things-
hilarious attack sound.
The ones
they
that scream.
do. Yeah, they do have the funniest attack sound, but I hate those things, and I would kill them and eat them too. So I can't really blame her.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, yeah,
I have
I kill those just, because. So, yeah.
yeah, I have a really hard time. Like, sure, maybe she eats bugs. Like, yeah,
She
Like,
doesn't
as
want to
long
eat
as she
you.
doesn't eat me, we got no problem.
yeah, she doesn't seem inclined
She
to eat
doesn't want to
me.
eat you.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm like a ghost or something, but I'm also very
Yeah.
small. I don't know. I talk to ghosts, and that seems like a problem too. I love how I do find your character's level of expressiveness really funny, because you're super expressive for how like tiny you are.
Tiny and with no mouth or other facial features other than eyes, which do not move.
Yes.
Yep.
It's super impressive. I did feel bad about the little mining bug though. She seemed like she was having a good time, and then she went crazy.
Yeah.
It's probably bad.
A little bit.
So since we got started a little bit late, I think we have time for one more topic. And Ash, right now, 4-job Fiesta is going on.
Yay! It's that time of the year for the Final Fantasy V 4-job Fiesta. New this year is Forbidden.
What is that even?
It has two effects. One is that your fourth job will be one of the GBA jobs.
So hopefully you're playing on
the
GBA.
GBA or mobile release.
What are those even?
Oracle, Cannoneer, and Gladiator, and I have no idea what they do because I've never used any of them.
I thought Necromancer was one of those.
It is, but Necromancer is after you beat the bonus dungeon, so it's not even in consideration.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a thing. And the other thing is that before you go into the Void, you have one of your first 3 jobs is going to get taken away. So there's not going to be a lot of the game where you have 4 jobs available to you, but,
Did you do this thing?
Of course I did this thing. I didn't know what it was before going into it, but I did this thing.
So how long did it take the runners this year? Because, I have been tuned out to this whole thing, whereas I usually watch the Twitch broadcast.
I was gone for most of that day, so I'm not sure, but apparently they finished before the evening.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Like, a normal speedrun of the 5 is like 6-ish hours long, and it takes them under the 4-job Fiesta constraints somewhere between 8 and 9 usually.
Does it depend slightly on how bad the constraints are?
Depends significantly on how bad their job set is. Last year was much longer.
I was gonna say, I remember there being a bad year.
It was especially long for that one guy.
Yeah, one guy forgot to save at the start and lost like an hour, his first hour.
Oh.
Yeah.
I have strong feelings about the rise of autosave functions.
Me too. How'd
How,
your run going?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask.
Mine's perfectly fine because I got Blue Mage and Summoner and Beastmaster.
You have a toolkit.
I have a toolkit and power.
I feel like you have a lot of quirky classes as well, but
So-
you're really good at quirky classes.
Do we know who's going into the Void for you yet?
Nope, I'll find out at the end of the game, which means I frustratingly have to do all these side quests and find out which ones didn't actually get me anything.
Wait, what? Going
I'm
into
going to
the
lose
void?
one of my first 3 jobs at the end of the game.
Oh.
Yep.
Yikes.
So maybe all those blue mage spells that you spent all that time getting disappear.
I'm gonna be really sad if I lose Mighty Guard,
Yikes.
but I'm gonna be equally sad if I lose Phoenix. So
You're gonna be
maybe I'll lose
sad.
Beastmaster.
I mean, I feel like that's your best option to lose
Yeah.
Beastmaster.
By that point in the game, Beastmaster's time is done because it has already helped me learn all the blue magic I needed to.
Oh man,
So
yeah,
best
I
case
thought
scenario,
about that. You could-
Beastmaster just goes
yeah.
away. But the likely case scenario is that I lose either Blue Mage or Summoner, and I get to be a little sad about it. But either one of those alone could carry a party. Oracle, I have no idea what it does. It's probably not going to be carrying anything other than taking Blue Magic or Summoner as a backup skill. So we'll see.
Do you have any idea who all is actually running this amongst our group of friends?
I'm not sure.
I
know
am
Void-
very
Void
much
running
not
it.
right now.
Yeah, I kind of don't have the cycles for it this year.
Yeah.
It's also this game. FF5 is also the single game I have replayed the most ever, because I don't usually like to replay games, and so I may need a break for a few years before I come back to it. I don't think I play most games more than twice.
I would like to
my list is
just
very short.
I would like to just play it normally once, considering I've only ever played it for 4-job Fiesta with weird rules.
That's also true of me.
The funny thing about that, though, is that you worry way less about grinding AP because you only were worried about 4 classes.
Yeah.
So it's easier to not get caught up in like decision paralysis in the 4-job Fiesta than it is when playing the game normally.
Yeah, but the problem is like, personally, I get stuck playing a lot of classes that I don't necessarily enjoy playing because,
That's fair.
I was handed them. So, I'd like to at least play it through once clean. Although, I will say, at this point, I almost need to play it on like an emulator because I've seen those unskippable cutscenes so many times.
I, this year, am playing it on an emulator for that reason.
Just so I can fast forward through them. Because, God, that makes it so much better.
There are a lot of
it's so much faster when you just finish the library and then like a minute later you get on the actual ship because you just skip through all the cutscenes.
Yeah, a lot of that grinding that I did the one year that I ended up with like insane levels was using, I think I had right bumper on the Street Fighter 2 Tekken gamepad set to fast forward, and I would just like run around in circles until it would aggro somebody and then do the fight and then run around again on super speed until I got like, so you're just basically going from combat to combat to combat to combat.
You know what makes it even faster?
What?
You have berserkers.
And just auto attack it and let it play out.
Yes.
Yeah, but that did make AP grinding a lot easier. I think I ended up going to like, what's the cave with the squirrels? I killed so many squirrels.
The skull crackers.
The skull crack. Yeah.
Skull eaters.
Yes,
Yeah,
I killed so many squirrels.
Those are pretty great with Beastmaster because you can control them to eat their own skulls.
Lovely. Can't we just not eat any skulls?
But they're skull eaters. No,
I mean-
they have to. They gotta eat somebody's skull.
It's a contractual obligation.
Just make sure it's not yours.
Okay, I don't think we're gonna make it to the last topic on this list because I think we're roughly over time.
yeah.
I will try and remember to keep the topic on for next week. Actually, it won't be for next week. It'll be for
2 weeks.
for 2 weeks from next week. Yeah, next week will be the Game of the Month show for June for Evoland 2. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good
night.
night.
See you.